Hey, everybody. Just jumping into some thoughts on Pastor Tom's message from today. If you haven't really been keeping up to date on these things, the church is back on and it was on today, the 9:30 and the 11 service. And then next week, June 14th, we will be back. Full blown youth. Everything will be as normal. And then the 17th is when our summer program kicks off. So for today, I'm not doing like a full Sunday show or anything like that. Just giving you a couple verses that Pastor Tom taught on during his services this week. And so if you want to check out those services, just go to the website. The link will be up there eventually. We also did a supplementary one earlier in the week, but he's kind of going through the process of growing in our faith, what the process of growing in our faith looks like. And one of the first verses that he selected was 2 Corinthians 13:11. It says this, it says, "Finally, brothers, rejoice. Aim for restoration, comfort one another, agree with one another, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you." And so it's talking about unity within the church, and he's writing to the Corinthians as the body of Christ. We can continue just to be a good witness during our time. It's been a crazy year with everything going on and everything that's kind of played out in our culture, in our time. And so we can create a space as Christians to have conversations and ultimately point people back to the Prince of Peace, point people back to Jesus. During these crazy times, that's what we need. That's the solution to all of these problems that we're facing, is to look to Jesus Christ. And the church a lot of times will do a bunch of different things, but they won't bring it back to the gospel. And even little Zach and I were talking about that this week, of how important the gospel is. It's never changing, and it is always something that should be at the forefront of our ministry. As Christians, we should be defined by our love, and we should be pointing people to Christ. And so that's why this is such a crucial verse for this time. The gospel is going to be the one thing that truly unifies the church. The gospel is truly going to be the thing that we can rally around. No matter who we are as believers, we come and say, this is the most important thing in our life, and this needs to be what our message is about. It encompasses all of these issues that we face. It encompasses everything into one package to say, this is our one way out of all of this. This is our one way, is to look to Jesus Christ as the one who is going to get us through every situation, who's going to create peace, that's going to unify us, the one that we can look to and look for ultimate justice in. And so this verse just lines up perfectly with where the world's at, because he's encouraging believers, take stock in this. This world is so temporary that we need to always be looking to Jesus Christ, because there is an eternity that is perfect. And as we rely on that perfect promise of God, it can just completely change our hearts, knowing that this isn't our home, that we're going to be in a different place because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because the very fact that the sinless, spotless Lamb went and died on a cross years and years and years ago, so that we could have forgiveness, that we could have our ticket to heaven. And that's what's so beautiful about the gospel, is that it unites us and it brings us together. And as believers, it's the very thing that we rally around. And it's awesome because we have a God that we can go to and pray about anything that is going on, whether it's personal in our lives, whether it's for our nation or for justice, or for any of these kind of things that are being thrown out right now. We need to go before God in prayer. And so jumping back in, another verse that he picked was Philippians 4:4. And this one's about rejoicing, an attitude that we don't, commonly really talk about. I think it kind of gets skipped over quite often in the church, but we are to rejoice. We are to give thanks to God in all circumstances. I was listening to a pastor this week, a friend of mine, and he said, man, it's not often that we thank God during these times. It's not often that we rejoice during these times, because it seems like such a different reaction than we're supposed to have. And yet it's something that God has called us to do, because ultimately he is providing the day for us to be able to live within it and glorify him. He's providing the day so that we can rally around each other, that we can be present with God for his mission, ultimately knowing that he is the one that's providing for us. This verse, Philippians 4:4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. It's pretty straightforward, but it's a call for us to have glad hearts as we come before God. And the reason why is because we don't have to get caught up with everything in this world. Ultimately, we are going to see God on the throne. We are going to get to be with him in his kingdom forever. All of this stuff is going to pass away. It is so temporary that we can look to the Prince of Peace, the Lord of Lords, and we can declare him as our God, submitting ourselves to him. It's all about continuing to be heaven-minded. Yes, there are things that are taking place here that need our attention. As Christians, we need to be praying for them. We need to be having conversations with people about them. We need to be, obedient to what God has called us to. But ultimately, we don't want to get so stuck here. We don't want to aim for the world and miss heaven. We want to aim for heaven and gain what God has for us in this life as a byproduct. And so those are my thoughts for today as we've covered these verses. Can't wait for next week when we are back together. Love you guys. See you guys later.